So let's talk about UCLA basketball. I graduated from UCLA. I'm an alum. I've seen a lot of UCLA basketball. I've seen a lot of good UCLA basketball, and I've seen a lot of bad UCLA basketball. I really like Mick Cronin as a coach. I like the toughness that he wants to instill in his players, and I like the defensive mentality. Um, but the one thing I have to question Mick Cronin about this year is the play, the selection and the rotation involving Adaimara. I don't understand why he's not getting more minutes than he is. So last night he had 16 minutes. He played 16 minutes. He had 11 points, 10 rebounds, and 3 blocks in those 16 minutes. I get that they went out and they spent money on Tyler Bilodeau and they went and got him, and he ended up with 19 points um, and 3 rebounds. 3 rebounds from your center. He's just not a 5. Tyler Bilodeau is not a 5. You have a 7'3" center who is going to play in the NBA. If there's a scout right now that does not salivate when they see what Adaimara does, then that scout needs to be fired, and they should not be involved in evaluating players at all. Like, I don't have trust in Sky Clark, and it pains me to say this because I don't have trust in Dylan Andrews. So I don't understand why they both start. I feel like the starting lineup should be Adaimara at the 5, Tyler Bilodeau at the 4, Eric Daly at the 3, Kobe Johnson at the 2, and then decide and make it a competition between Sky Clark and Dylan Andrews. I think Dylan Andrews' play has regressed from last year, and I think it's part of him trying to adjust to all these new players coming in. I felt like he was sturdy last year. He was really good defensively. He was a shot maker for them, and he just has not lived up to those expectations from last year. I think Sky Clark is a good defender, but the amount of times, and both in the Minnesota, even last night against Northwestern, where guys are just driving at them to end the game. They're just going by them. Both Andrews and Sky Clark are just going right by them and getting to the rim to get layups. It baffles me. The free throw shooting on this team, it keeps teams in the game. They're not clutch in terms of making free throws. It seems like this is sort of an issue of all Mick Cronin teams where they're just not consistent free throw shot makers. They don't put the game away at the free throw line. If anything, fouling them is your best defense because them making free throws is something that's not going to happen. Very rarely do you see consecutive trips where they're making both free throws. Multiple players making both free throws. It's always they make one, they miss one. They make one, they miss one. And I question the toughness that this team has. I don't feel like this is a mentally tough team. I feel like they're talented, but I don't think that they're mentally tough. They almost shit the bed yesterday and gave that game away against Northwestern against a bullshit press. Like, the press is just garbage. The diamond press, the 1-2-1-1, where the trap comes in on the inbounds from the guy that's guarding the ball in the wing, and the guys just go to that corner. And the fact that press works to this day is baffling. It's so baffling because the deep diagonal is always open against that diamond press. So you can have a deep diagonal and you can have a guy running down the lane line. So if you inbound the ball there, and have a guy in the middle. So you have a guy in the middle, a guy deep diagonal, and a guy on the lane line. And you can have 3 different options that really stretch that back row to make a decision in terms of how they're going to guard it. But for whatever reason, UCLA couldn't figure it out. And can we just stop with the endless switching on defense? It's worked in the past, and sometimes what UCLA does, they do possessions where they switch 2 or 3 players at a time, right? So a pass is made, and they know what the play is going to be, and they'll switch 3 players at a time. And when it's well done and it's well choreographed, it works. But when it's not well choreographed, it always gives up a bucket. But the other issue is that, look, I don't think Tyler Bilodeau can guard anybody in the perimeter. So having him switch onto a guard instead of forcing your guards to fight through it, to fight through the screen, and to stick with their matchup, it's confusing to me. But this is sort of a thing that's happening in basketball. It's like there's a laziness to coaching defense, and there's just a dependence of just switching everything. Like, that is the solution, and every single coach does it, right? Let's just switch. Like, you could physically fight through screens if you wanted to. If you had dogs, if you had wolves, if you had guys that really wanted to play defense, you could fight through screens and get through any screen that is set if you're teaching proper footwork and the emphasis is to get through those screens. Now, it's not going to happen every time, but let's not also act like every single screen that is being set on the offense today is this wonderful screen that just peels off every single defender. Because that is not what is happening in basketball today. It's like offenses of the past had so much more screening action away from the ball. You had flex screens, you had pin downs, you have all these different flare screens, all these different actions that were taking place with the offenses. But right now it's just all spread and it's all pick and pop at the top, right? And for whatever reason, guys can't fight through a freaking pick and roll screen and stick with the guy on the ball. And just watching this team play for this entire season, I feel like cut the switching, stop the switching, force them to stick with their matchups, force them to fight, because this team just lacks any sort of toughness. And so they'll switch any little screen just to be lazy, right? And it's like bad switches where it's like they don't really like make contact on the switch or they don't really communicate on the switch. It's just bad defensive communication, and then it leads to lazy switching and a lack of fighting. And so, yes, I understand why Mick Cronin went on that rant. I understand why Mick Cronin is questioning and challenging the toughness of that team. But at the same time, I don't feel like the defensive philosophy is helping these guys become tougher. I also don't understand why Adai Mara is not starting and not getting 20 to 25 minutes a game. It's like you are sitting a future pro. Barring any sort of foot issues or knee issues, which does happen with big guys, Adaimara is a for sure NBA player. He is nimble, he is agile, he has touch. His passing is amazing. Like he sees the floor so well, and he has a variety of different passes that he makes. His rebounding is exceptional, and then also his defensive awareness and understanding of fundamentals and how to do things is much better than Tyler Bilodeau and much better than Eric Daly Jr. But for whatever reason, there's this mentality going on amongst the UCLA coaching staff that a Daimara cannot do things. But yet when we see him play, he clearly changes the dynamic of every single game that he has played, where he is getting minutes, where he is getting touches, where the ball is getting inside. And now what you started to see last night was Northwestern starting to double him. Whereas before, like, they would just play him one-on-one. And I also feel like Kobe Johnson's not intense enough. I feel like he's an exceptional defender when he wants to be. I feel like he's got very good lateral movement, but his engagement on the defensive end is just not always there. I feel like there's moments where he's just not in it, and he just sort of goes through the motions and he relies on his athleticism instead of just fully being engaged and having pride in that defensive performance. And so the issue with this team for me is the defensive end, right? For a defensive coach, this team is just not defensively connected. They're not defensively tough. They don't take pride in that defense the way that they should. There's not a toughness with it. And I feel like the switching that is taking place is just making it so that, players can just be lazy and just like get out of having to fight and play with any sort of toughness and any sort of discipline on a defensive end. So like this team has the makings of making a deep run, but because of their lack of toughness, their lack of consistent free throw making, and the I'm gonna say subpar play on the wings by both Sky Clark and Dylan Andrews, I wouldn't be surprised if they get bounced early in the tournament as well. And as much as I love Mick Cronin, this is also a moment for him to look in the mirror and come to terms with the decisions that he's making with Adaimara and realize that he is screwing that up. So that's my rant. Follow, like, comment. Let me know what you think. Take care.